Length contraction is 100% fake. It literally never happens, and here's the proof. Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're killing one of the biggest sacred cows in physics, length contraction. The claim is that when something moves really fast, it physically shrinks in the direction of motion, like your spaceship turns into a pancake just because it's going 0.9 c. Textbooks swear it's real. Professors will fight you over it. But in this video, I'm going to prove, with 3 brutal, airtight arguments, that nothing ever physically shrinks. No relativity of simultaneity cop-outs, no Lorentz transformations, just pure logic and facts. Let's destroy this myth. Quick history: why this dumb idea even exists. Length contraction was invented in the 1890s as a desperate ad hoc patch to save the idea of a stationary, non-entrained ether after the Michelson-Morley experiment showed no ether wind. Fitzgerald, Lorentz, Larmor, Poincaré all added band-aids. Moving objects squish, electrons need extra, Poincaré stresses, blah blah. Then Einstein comes along, says ether is superfluous, not realizing that the ether is actually dynamic and entrained by the Earth, but yet he kept the exact same idiotic contraction anyway. It's like throwing out geocentrism, but still keeping epicycles because they work. Total nonsense from day one. Reciprocity makes physical squashing impossible. Here are 2 identical spaceships, A and B, passing each other at 0.9 c. From A's view, B is squashed to 40% length. From B's view, A is squashed to 40% length. Question: which one is actually physically shorter right now in the universe? If contraction is real physical deformation like metal compressing, then one has to be truly shorter. But relativity says both are shorter at the same time. That's like saying this ship is smaller than that one, and that one is smaller than this one. Impossible. Length is an objective property. An object cannot be both 100 meters and 40 meters at the exact same moment in reality. Reciprocity proves nothing ever physically shrinks, because real squashing can't happen both ways simultaneously. Born rigidity proves even relativity forbids real compression. Take a perfectly rigid 100-meter rod, strongest material imaginable. Accelerate it gently to 0.9 c. If length contraction were physical, the front and back would have to crunch together, like an invisible force squeezing the atoms. But there's no such force in relativity, no compression field in the stress-energy tensor. Even worse, Max Born proved in 1909 that the only way to accelerate a rigid object without tearing it apart is Born rigid motion. In Born rigid motion, every tiny piece of the rod keeps its exact proper length in its own instantaneous rest frame. Translation: no part of the rod ever experiences physical compression. Even relativity's own math says real objects never actually get shorter. 0 experiments have ever measured real shrinking. Name one single experiment that took a real solid object, a ruler, a rod, a satellite, sped it up to relativistic velocity, and measured it physically shorter than when it was at rest. You can't. Not one, ever. Muons live longer? That's just time dilation, aka matter deceleration, caused by pressure from ether particles. It's definitely not the atmosphere being contracted from the muon's frame. Only an absolute nutcase would believe that. Particle beams look shorter in accelerators. Those are loose bunches of particles decelerating as they pass through the ether at high speeds, similar to air resistance. This results in the front particles of the beam moving more slowly than the rear ones, thereby contracting the so-called beam. More matter deceleration, or time dilation as they call it. A particle beam is not a rigid object, it's a dynamic activity where particles move from point A to point B. The particles themselves never squish. GPS satellites? Engineers correct clocks and orbits, but never for any physical shortening of the satellite hardware itself. The antennas, circuit boards, same physical size in orbit as on the ground, in their own frame. Fast so-called nuclei particles in colliders, again beams, not solid objects. Crystals in resonators? Light tricks and misinterpretations. Light travel time changes while accelerated, not the crystal shrinking. Light travels fastest in a so-called vacuum, which actually contains ether particles, slower in the air and even slower in a crystal. Therefore, the light would appear to speed up only when moving from the crystal or the air into the vacuum inside the rod. Accelerating the rod creates more changes for light travel time. The crystal rod never contracts, the light accelerated, possibly amplified by the acceleration of the rod and apparently debunking the constancy of the speed of light. We have never once seen a meter stick become 50 centimeters just because it's moving. And we never will, because nothing actually shrinks. Bonus death blow, recent independent experiments confirm it. Brand new experiments using modified Sagnac and Mach-Zehnder interferometers specifically designed to detect absolute motion even if length contraction were real found zero fringe shift. Expected shifts for galactic or CMB motion, 0.5 to 2 fringes. Result, nothing. Conclusion of the experimenters themselves. Length contraction does not explain Michelson-Morley, and the effect doesn't happen at all. Conclusion. 3 nails in the coffin. Reciprocal contraction is logically impossible for real objects. Born rigid acceleration proves even relativity forbids actual compression. 0 direct experiments. No solid object has ever been measured shorter. Length contraction is nothing but a 130-year-old ad hoc coordinate artifact invented to patch a dead theory. Real objects do not shrink. Spaceships do not squash. Rulers stay the same physical length no matter how fast they go. The universe is not playing shrink ray games with matter. Length contraction equals fake news.